Hello and welcome to Morris Park. Today everything's in the greenhouse and everybody's going to be bringing their stuff into the greenhouse. And a lot of activity is going to be slowing down for a lot of our cacti and succulents. But we can still kind of take a look at plants and show how interesting many of them are. And so for the fall and probably into the winter, I'm going to be doing some showcase videos on some of my individual plants. And today, my video is going to be Euphorbia pulvinata. Euphorbia pulvinata is a little clump-forming euphorbia. Kind of forms big cushions in its native habitat. Pulvinata actually refers to its form, which is cushion-like. In nature, these will form big, fat, dense cushions. And sometimes they say they're made up of thousands of heads. And sometimes joining up can cover several meters wide with these plants. These plants are native to Natal and Lesotho, Zoutpansberg, and some of that region of South Africa. They will take a little bit of cold, but not too much freezing. I think they'll take a light frost, but that's about it. It's kind of interesting to note that this plant looks a lot like Melliformis or Valida, except having these leaves. That's kind of what sets it apart from those two, really. It has that same kind of form, a globular form, kind of clump forming, which they all do. And in some ways kind of resembles a gymnocalycium cactus too. But as I say, except for having these little leaves. Now soon, this plant will be shedding all these little neat leaves that it has because I'm going to let it dry out for the winter. Every year I do this, and all these leaves here will just kind of shrivel up, and I'll just have to brush them off. Now what's curious about this plant is about the time this all happens is when it starts blooming. Now right now, I don't know if you can see it, but way down in the axils of those leaves there, see that little yellow polka dot there? Kind of hard to see. But anyway, that's one of the flowers starting to form. And as I say, just when I let this thing dry out is when it wants to start blooming. You can kind of see down the axil of the leaves of this one too. The flowers are coming out. And they have little short, like yellow flowers. See that one there? Little short, fat, yellow flowers. They're just kind of tucked down in there. They don't come out on a peduncle or stem, rather, to form. Now you can see a few of the dried up ones and how close they were on the plant. The plant also does produce small thorns here and there. Not a whole lot of them, though. Just a few here and there randomly. It's not a very thorny euphorbia. It's kind of a really cool looking euphorbia. The story on this plant, this particular plant, is this is one of my finds, one of those out of the way places. I found this at a tiny little produce shop that was over in one of the small towns near us, of Dixon, Missouri, as a matter of fact. When I went in that day, I saw from the outside they had this little tiny tray of cactus and succulents. And it really wasn't much. This thing was about a 3-inch pot. It had maybe a large head and a couple small little heads on it. But right away I noticed it was euphorbia, and it really stood out from everything else because this is something unusual. You don't find this just everywhere. Euphorbia pulvinata I've only seen right here in my collection and from that shop. Anywhere else I've never seen it in any of the big box stores or anything like that. I'm not saying it couldn't happen, but you really don't see it as a commonly bought euphorbia, say like Euphorbia mammillaris or ingens or Euphorbia zigzag or one of them. This is kind of an unusual thing. It's kind of curious the way it kind of just flows over the pot. Just kind of makes its own way. Very cool euphorbia. But anyway, I found it at this little shop, and this has been about 20 years ago. The little shop no longer exists. In fact, most of the shops in that row are gone now. Closed up many years ago. So it's kind of sad. Don't have that anymore. But it's just kind of funny, the things you find when you're not really looking for them in the oddest of places. And normally you probably would have had to go to a online shop or something like that to get this. But cool little Euphorbia. I've had it about 20 years. I love the way it has the mixture of the succulent stems and the almost herbaceous leaves, deciduous leaves that it gets rid of every year, of course, for the winter. Kind of a neat combination, kind of a transition almost between leafy plant and succulent. If you really look, those leaves are very thin. They're not really a succulent, water-storing leaf at all. These will be all gone soon. Anyhow, I just wanted to show you this really cool Euphorbia, tell you a little bit about it, and show off a little bit something from my collection. And I'll be doing this from time to time, and showing some of these little videos like this of my plants and showcasing some of them. Anyhow, this is Clyde Morris from Morris Park. I hope you enjoyed the little Euphorbia pulvinata. Take care.